Story 1. So, finally I have a story to post here. I work in health. Specifically, I assist people with getting into various patient portals to access their health information, make appointments, message doctors, etc. 95% of the people who call us are nice and often grateful when we're able to help them get back into their portal. Some start as frustrated, but once they see we're able to help them and get them what they need, they transform and become sweet as a pudding pie. Then there's the other 5%. Hoo boy. A note here that the company I work for is excellent. They put an emphasis on customer service first, but also have our back if there are any genuine issues with a customer misbehaving. Everything is recorded, so if there are any questions, quality assurance or management can go back, hear for themselves, and make recommendations as needed. All this leads to our caller for today. Mr. Douche was having problems getting into his portal. He calls me, literally yelling about how broken and garbage your system is, with a tone implying I personally picked the AR and portal for a medical organization in another state just to spite him. Hey, no hurt feelings here. There are some things I don't like about the portal either. But he continues on and on about how much he hates it. All his friends hate it. His neighbors hate it. His pets hate it. And so on. When I can finally get a polite word in, I ask him for his name so I can look him up in our system. He spits out his name. Bob Douche, per HIPAA. I also have to ask for 2 secondary identifiers to make sure he is the right Bob Douche. I ask for his date of birth and the last 4 of his SSN per procedure. He rants about why can't I get him back into his chart now and screeches out the rest of his info. I try to find him in the system as he continues babbling angrily, and lo and behold, he's not in there. I politely ask him to spell his name. Geez, don't you know how to do your job? Turns out his name is not spelled like the normal douche. It is spelled something else. I finally found him and opened his file. So you can't get into the portal, sir? Yes, didn't I just say that? Okay, sir, I see your username is X. I can't look up old passwords, so would you like me to give you a temporary one? Screaming intensifies. I'm already in my portal, he cries in fury, completely contradicting what he said mere seconds ago. I need help finding my information. I am now holding my headset away from my ear in pain. If my cubicle neighbor had not been at lunch, I'm pretty sure he'd be able to hear this guy just as clearly as me. I'm sorry, sir, I thought you just said. Don't you even know what you're doing? Well, sir, what are you? Why do you keep asking me these questions? You're harassing me. Oh, well now, I can't be harassing my customers. That's just not appropriate, and against our company's policies, of course. Deep breath, clear voice. Well, sir, I'm trying to assist you, but if you feel I'm harassing you, then I'm afraid I need to end this call. The screaming had become unintelligible at this point, though I heard a couple of curses thrown in. Remember how I said our company has our back? If abusive language is used, we're allowed to disconnect after a warning. And I had already told him I was going to end this call. I'm sorry I wasn't able to help you, sir. Thank you for calling Patient Portal. Have a good day. I pushed the end call button. Per procedure, I immediately notified quality assurance of what had just happened in case the guy called back with complaints or started bellowing at other agents. The quality agent listens to the call and comes back with, "Wow, that guy started angry and he never let up. You tried to help and you had more patience than I would have. You're fine." I went on to help many other lovely customers through the rest of the day. He thankfully never called back. I would not be surprised to find he filled himself with so much rage he spontaneously combusted, leaving a vacuum of bitterness behind in his place. Story 2. This happened to me in 1996. I was a freshman in college and got on with a national model United Nations because I had nothing better to do. Later that translated into a lot of staff opportunities through various unagencies. But at this time I was just some idiot punk girl learning how to drink a great deal of alcohol in international territory. During the days, we acted being a fancy diplomat. My college got assigned to Gabon, which was extra interesting that week because we had an Ebola outbreak and got briefings from the actual Gabonese delegates and assistants. I am visibly not Gabonese, but most people haven't even heard of it, much less know it's in sub-Saharan Africa, when I was head delegate at NMUN 1 year for Ireland. Now that made a lot more sense with all the freckles. I went to the UN store to shop for some souvenirs. A little Gabon flag, because where am I going to find one of those back home in Colorado? Postcards, the usual stuff. As I looked at the postcards, a tourist saw the UN symbol on my security badge and asked me a few questions about the maps in the gift shop. I answered her questions because I'd been drooling over the map section myself. She looked at my badge a little closer to thank me by name, and saw United Nations Delegate and Gabonese Republic. She turned pale and apologized for wasting my time. Miss Ambassador. Of course I reassured her that it was no problem and enjoy her trip to the United Nations. Later, I realized that while she'd first mistaken me for a gift shop employee, and why wouldn't she now had one of those great New York tourist stories about her awkward encounter with an actual undiplomat. Which I also was not. I just wanted her to get her maps and have a great time. Next story, CEO sends former employee a to-do list. So normally, these stories are about a customer harassing another unsuspecting customer. But today a CEO was the one who didn't know who the employee was. This just happened while I was having breakfast with my sister. My sister quit her last job in October 2018. She was the logistics coordinator for a multimillion international beauty company. She wasn't there for long, and in fact she has been out of the company longer than she was ever a part of it. The CEO just sent her a list of companies and partners and demanded that she send out thank cards and gift cards to every single one of them in the next half hour. He sent this to her personal cell phone number. She did let him know that she is no longer with them, but she is 100% sure someone else is about to get seriously reprimanded over this. We're waiting on his response, but we're certain he most likely won't. Edit. For clarity on situation. This company has its own stores and sells its own products in other retailers. She was responsible for the communication between the shops, retailers, and the transportation companies. Because of this role, she had everyone's contact information at her desk, so she would help out when it came to sending the company's gift cards and thank you cards out to the third parties. The message was sent from his personal number to her personal number, not via email, so she's sure it's not a scam, but most likely just a mix-up. Because she was the head of this department, it wasn't uncommon to be contacted through her personal number, as they worked with international companies and would be contacted at odd hours. She used her personal number because the company refused to give her a company cell phone for this role, one of the many reasons she left the company. I'll write another edit for more clarity. If she had still been employed there, she would have regular contact with the higher-ups, as they only have one corporate building. The gift cards would have been company's gift cards, not other retailers' gift cards, so no money would have come out of her pocket. Story 3. So, this happened about an hour ago. I decided to go and get breakfast at the local Sheetz gas station on my Vespa. I went and parked my bike in one of the spots close to the online pickup lanes and went inside to get my coffee and bagels. Within the 4 minutes, I was in the gas station. Some bratty kid decided that my motorbike looked like a fun plaything and promptly parked it outside. So now, by the time I'm back outside with my food, there's a kid sitting on my bike and trying to kickstart it to no avail. It pretty much goes on like this. Me, off the bike. Entitled kid. Oh, sorry, I just really like it. Me, cool, but it's not nice to sit on other people's motorcycles. The kid gets off and runs around the opposite side of the building. I've seen enamored kids before, and they really seem to like my new Vespa. I usually just wave and ride on. No less than 2 minutes later, I hear the screech of Karen herself. Entitled mother, hey, my son really likes your bike. How much would you sell it for? Me, it's not for sale, and he's too young. Anything is for sale for the right price. I want your bike. Okay, how's $5,000 sound? That's ridiculous. I could get one at Walmart for a couple hundred. Cool, you go do that. No, you're going to give that bike to my son, or I'm going to. Motions to the local police officer that just pulled in, presumably also for breakfast, that you stole it from us. Go ahead, I'll wait right here. So Karen goes off to the nice policeman and spins her yarn about how I stole their scooter and how their daddy bought it for their son a few years ago, and it's been his favorite toy, and how I ruined everything by stealing it from them. Nice policeman comes over to me, notices that I'm in full motorcycle gear, that bright chartreuse yellow with reflective stripes everywhere, notices the license plate and the vehicle itself. Nice policeman. License, registration, and proof of insurance. I just handed the nice policeman all my information, my registration in my name, my insurance card in my name, and the heaping stack of paperwork from the dealership also in my name. He just looks at all of it and gives me one of those "I just started my shift, for God's sake" looks. Everything looks in order. What happened here? Me. I went to get breakfast and came out to find this kid sitting on my bike. I shooed him off, and then his mom decided she wanted my bike for herself. It's not for sale, and she wouldn't accept that. All the while, the entitled mom is giving me that smug "I got you" look, like anything is actually going to happen. Nice policeman goes over to the entitled mother as he hands me back my paperwork. Nice policeman. Ma'am, filing a false report is a felony. This motorbike is too large, requires registration and a Class M license, which your son is too young to obtain. Is all of the information you just told me correct, or would you like to clarify? Entitled mother: no, it's all correct. That man stole our motorcycle. At this point, the other officer from the police cruiser comes over to me and asks if there's anything I'd like to press charges on: harassment, attempted theft, etc. I said sure, sort of just to scare her off. Another officer takes my contact info and tells me I'm good to go and walks over to the now screeching Karen who didn't get her way and is now trying to also battle her citation for wasting police time. The entitled kid is nowhere to be seen. I just started up my motorbike and left the two officers to deal with Karen since they said I was free to go. I'll make a mental note to avoid this particular sheets at 7 MZ, since the surrounding neighborhood is one of the upper-class entitled Peoplevilles, and perhaps get breakfast at the dumpy one next to the truck stop. Story 4. I want to state clearly that this did not happen to me, but to a friend in a state that has adopted a set of stand your ground laws. This is posted with his explicit permission, though I will have to redact some details due to the still ongoing case. I know this will probably be buried in new or get removed, but I just wanted to share something that happened today that really makes you appreciate the term trigger discipline. I won't bother with the cast, as it should be fairly obvious what type of people are involved judging by the title. A friend of mine was out and about with his girlfriend shopping for groceries, clothes, and some new utensils. My friend and his girlfriend stop at a store to pick up some clothes, some for themselves, and some for his girlfriend's niece, who is all but 2 years old and is having her birthday in 2 days. After finding the clothes that both him and his girlfriend want for themselves and his girlfriend's niece, they were walking up to the checkout when, according to my friend, they heard a woman screech, "You filthy harlot, you can't wear those kinds of clothes in public." This made them both stop and turn around to see an obese, middle-aged woman with the stereotypical Karen haircut that was dragging along a poor kid who looked like he was wearing hand-me-downs from several generations before, while the mother was wearing what appeared to be a fancy dress that looked horrible on her according to my friend, jewelry, and had enough makeup on her face to put a Barbie doll that's been dunked in wax to shame. My friend didn't like that this woman called his girlfriend a harlot. The term harlot was common many years ago and was used to describe women, and was basically calling them bad names in a religious manner context. He simply said, "Lady, don't use that word to describe my girlfriend. You shouldn't even be using that sort of language around your kid. Besides, what she decides to wear is her choice alone. Now kindly leave us alone." The mother screeched, "I am a God-fearing, God-worshipping woman and your elder. You have to listen to me." My friend's girlfriend made the mistake of saying that they might have heard her out if she had been nice and calm about it and not yelling like a banshee on crack. This, not surprisingly, didn't sit well with the mother in the slightest, which then caused her to start shouting about how that as their superior, and because they were younger than her and less disciplined than her, that they needed to listen to her, and that her precious baby didn't deserve to see a trashy woman wearing revealing clothes, and that they would taint his mind. This, in turn, pissed both of them off, but they decided to just drop the subject altogether, instead of feeding fuel to the dumpster fire. They walk away after they hear the mother sputtering and yelling about how my friend's girlfriend was a bad influence to her precious child and how they would both, and I quote from his account, be sent to hell one way or another. The last comment put him on edge, and rightly so. After checking out, and with their cheerful moods dampened, they both were on their way to my friend's car when they both heard, "Sweetie, get in the car, Mommy has some problems to deal with." They both rolled their eyes and continued on their way to my friend's car until they heard, "I'll cut those clothes off you myself, you filthy sinners," by the distinctive voice of the mother that they hoped they had seen the last of. My friend turned around and saw the woman hobbling over with a knife in her hand with the blade flipped out, yelling at them the whole time. My friend immediately tells his girlfriend to call the police as he yells at her to stop walking towards them with the knife. When she doesn't stop, he once again yells at her to stop and please put away the knife and that nobody has to get hurt. When she still doesn't walk away, my friend draws his concealed carry-out from his waistband and once more shouts at the woman to just walk away and that he doesn't want to use his firearm. He borderline begged her not to make him have to pull the trigger, that he didn't want her kid to lose his mother. The mother screeched that she would get him arrested for drawing a dangerous weapon on a law-abiding person that was doing God's work, and quickly hobbled away, much to his relief. His girlfriend came out from behind a nearby car and handed the phone to him so he could explain what happened. He let the operator know that he was a lawful concealed carrier and that he had just drawn his weapon on a person that wished him and his girlfriend bodily harm. Following the operator's instructions, he described the time, place, and the vehicles that were around him and set his firearm on the trunk of his car, and both him and his girlfriend stepped away from the trunk of his car. When the police arrived, they detained my friend. Detained does not mean arrest. He was just put in the back of the cruiser while the police sorted things out. No handcuffs were involved and no rights were read, and they both gave the responding officers their side of the story and pointed out the security cameras outside. They confiscated my friend's firearm, a standard procedure for incidents like these, and asked them both to give a statement at the police station. They agreed, and my friend was even complimented later by an officer for not being hasty and showing exceptional trigger discipline. He has not gotten his firearm back and most likely will not receive it back until this whole case is sorted out. But he then told me that losing his firearm for the time being is preferred over having to potentially kill someone over something as stupid as clothing. Story 5. A few days ago, I posted in the Am I the Jerk subreddit and realized something. I may have accidentally started revealing too much about myself by mentioning the bottle deposit in my state. I figured I might as well come clean since I probably shouldn't be posting here anymore anyway. But just to clarify, I'm not actually in the part of the United States I previously told people. I only said that to avoid anyone trying to figure out where I live and who I am. That was pretty much the only thing I fibbed about. In retrospect, it doesn't really matter anymore since I'm no longer posting about Dan, my former sister-in-law, or my parents. Speaking of Dan, he and my nieces and nephews are doing great. And yes, Dan is still living in his own camper in our parents' backyard after giving up his room for his son. He still wants to buy his own truck for camping someday, but taking care of his family comes first. He's still recovering financially after what his ex-wife put him through, burning through his savings and racking up debt. On top of that, Dan is also saving for his kids' future college expenses. So buying a truck isn't a priority right now. My parents are doing well. My mother is much more emotionally stable around me these days. She went through a rough period where she would get stressed over the smallest things and constantly apologize to everyone. Even seeing stories remotely similar to the ones I posted would send her back to therapy. But she's making great progress. As for my father, while he isn't exactly warm with me, we're at least civil. We've even had a few drinks together. Unfortunately, we missed out on truly bonding as father and son because of the past favoritism he showed toward Dan. But to his credit, he's been working hard to better himself, and I appreciate his effort. My parents can't change the past, so they're just doing their best to move forward. Regarding my former sister-in-law, she has pretty much stopped making any effort to see the 3 kids she had with Dan. She has even talked about completely giving up her parental rights multiple times, but never actually goes through with it despite barely being around. Life hit her hard about a year ago when she got arrested for driving under the influence. She had to take classes and remain sober for 6 months, which was absolute torture for her. We all expected her to cave and start drinking again before she was supposed to, but she actually stuck to it. I guess she was afraid of what would happen if she broke the court order. She eventually got her license back, but now she has to drive with a breathalyzer in her car. If she has even a drop of alcohol in her system, the car won't start. For a while, she kept trying to flirt with Dan, but he never took the bait. Eventually, she moved on and started dating someone else, who I assume she's making do everything for her. In a way, that's good news for us, but I feel bad for whatever guy she's roped in. None of us would put it past her to try trapping someone with a baby. We're all just relieved she's out of our lives, but my nieces and nephews have still lost their mother because she's an entitled, shopaholic, self-centered cheater who finally got what she deserved. Saying she was cheese-slapped by karma has become an ongoing joke in our family since I first coined the phrase. My parents, Dan, and even some of my friends have started saying, "Oh no, they got cheese-slapped," whenever karma catches up to someone we know. I'm not sure if she's aware of it, but honestly, we don't care. I'm pretty sure she was the one who egged my truck on Halloween a year and a half ago, but thankfully, nothing like that has happened since. Last week, I had a huge bag full of cans that I planned to cash in. While I was having lunch, some woman stole them right out of the back of my truck. The bottle return center wasn't far, so I headed in that direction and caught her lugging my bag of cans. I pulled over and confronted her, but she denied taking them until I threatened to call the police and mentioned that the place where I had lunch likely caught her on security cameras. At that point, she started complaining about money being tight, but I didn't care. Stealing is stealing. She ended up dropping the bag and shouting at me before storming off, but at least I got my cans back. Later, I told some friends about what happened. Only one person was upset with me, and it happened to be the now ex-girlfriend of one of my closest friends. I was worried that the situation had somehow ruined their relationship, but it turned out their breakup had been coming for a long time. During our argument, she yelled at me, claiming that the woman who stole the bag might have been homeless and that I went too far by chasing her down and making her return the cans. She called me selfish, saying I never give people a break just because I've been wronged in the past. Then she mockingly put on her boyfriend's baseball cap and did a ridiculous parody of me in the worst way she could manage. Nobody was laughing, especially not her boyfriend. He yanked the hat off her head and told her that she had crossed the line. She snapped back that what I did was worse, taking cans away from a possibly broke or homeless woman, and then stormed out of the bar. Later that night, I had a few more drinks at home, and the whole situation made me feel conflicted. My insomnia flared up from the stress, so I posted on Reddit to ask if I was in the wrong. The response: about 90% of people said I wasn't. I couldn't include every detail due to the character limit on that subreddit, but the overwhelming consensus was that I had done nothing wrong. Well, because my friends knew about my Reddit account, it wasn't long before the situation blew up. My phone started blowing up with calls and text messages, so I logged out and stopped responding to comments. Things escalated quickly. My friend and his now ex-girlfriend had a huge argument over the phone during their lunch breaks. By that evening, their relationship was officially over. Before she disappeared from his life, she sent me a final message just to call me a jerk one more time. She even blamed me for ruining everything. I didn't bother responding, I just blocked her number. The weird part, I never gave her my number. Jury's still out on how she got it, but it wouldn't have been hard. She could have copied it from my friend's phone or asked someone else. At first, I was really upset, thinking I had caused their breakup. But then my friend came over with some beer and reassured me that this was the push he needed to end things. He told me they had only been dating for about 5 or 6 months, and the relationship had been a mess. She constantly nagged him, tried to milk him for money, and always took alcohol from his fridge to bring back to her place without asking. She expected him to pay for every meal when they went out, starting from the very first date. And the worst part? She was glued to her phone all the time. Even on date nights, she was scrolling endlessly. That's how their Valentine's Day went. He realized then that he didn't want to stay with someone who acted like an entitled teenager. He also mentioned that she had been getting rough with him lately. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't push for details, but it was clear that things had been bad. In the end, he used the situation as an excuse to finally break up with her. According to him, she screamed, cried, cussed him out, and tried to twist the narrative, denying everything he brought up about her behavior. But he wasn't having it. He told her it was over. When she packed up her stuff at his apartment, she even tried to take things that didn't belong to her, like his collection of herbal products and his coffee maker. He loves coffee and has one of those machines that uses small plastic pods to brew it. She argued that he got her hooked on good coffee and that he could just buy another machine. That's when he pulled out his phone and started recording her, telling her to leave before he got the authorities involved. She finally left, but he wasn't sure if she actually wanted the coffee maker for the coffee or if she just wanted to take something from him out of spite. Personally, I don't have a fancy coffee machine. I just use a basic coffee pot since I share morning coffee with the other people in my house. Before that, I just drank instant coffee. Anyway, back at my place, I still have a couple of roommates renting rooms to help with my mortgage. And let me tell you, these guys are real bros. That night, they came out to join us for some beers, and the 4 of us got completely caught up in a wild game of Uno. We also played He Who Smelt It, Dealt It, which, for the record, is a hilarious but terrible game when you're drinking. After that, I finally managed to get some deep sleep, though it was on my couch after way too much beer. I only slept for about 7 hours, but it was the best sleep I'd had in a while. Unfortunately, my phone's alarm the next morning may as well have been nails on a chalkboard. My friend had left my phone right next to my head after I passed out. That wasn't the only thing he left. When I woke up, I had a square of sandwich cheese stuck to my face. I groaned. "Oh, come on," he cheese slapped me. I laughed, which immediately made my hangover hit harder. I had been too drunk to feel it when he threw it on my face after I passed out, so he just left it there for me to find in the morning. We both had a painful, hungover laugh about it. Neither of us made it to work on time that day. We had to call in and go in late just to get through the morning. I was basically running on energy drinks the entire day. As for my friend's ex, she hasn't made any more attempts to contact either of us. She blocked a bunch of people on social media and has effectively removed herself from the friend group. Turns out, a lot of people didn't like her anyway, so nobody's losing sleep over it. Really shouldn't be posting here again, but I just want to clarify a couple of details. First, the bag I was using to haul the cans was a large transparent plastic bag meant to cover mattresses. They're actually great for repurposing as oversized garbage bags once they've been removed from a mattress. A friend of mine works in a warehouse delivering mattresses, and he gives out these used mattress bags to friends and family for free. They hold a ton of stuff and are way more durable than regular garbage bags when they're in good condition. Second, I want to make it clear that I only buy beverages in cans or plastic bottles because they're much lighter than glass when bagged up. That makes hauling them to the recycling center a lot easier. Finally, I did get my friend's permission before making this post, since the situation involved him heavily. He's pretty relaxed about it and jokingly told me that I owe him a 6-pack of tall beers for the whole mess. Even though he said it as a joke, I still followed through. Yesterday, I left a 6-pack at his front door with a pink bow on it, rang the doorbell, and bolted. He thought that was pretty funny. As for me, I think I'm going to lay off alcohol for a while. So yeah, hopefully, I won't get tempted to come back here to post again. Story 6. A post on a different subreddit reminded me of an incident that happened to me 3 years ago. I felt like sharing it, so here goes. In March 2018, I'd been in an accident, and I ended up busting my left knee. The injury was quite serious. Also, I am fluent in 3 languages: English, Hindi, and Marathi, which is my mother tongue. I also understand enough Tamil to have a half-decent conversation interspersed with English words. This is important for later. Now to the story. The incident took place on a flight from my sister's city to my college city. I was wearing shorts, and anyone would immediately notice the huge bandage around my knee. During the check-in, I explained my leg situation and asked for a window seat on the left side of the plane. I figured that way would allow my leg the least amount of disturbance. Didn't get one, so I begged for a seat in the row of the emergency exit, seeing as how they have extra leg space. Got one. Due to my leg, I stayed back and boarded the plane at the very end. As I hobbled to my seat, I saw that all the 3 seats in that row were occupied. A girl was sitting in the window seat, entitled wife in the middle seat, and the entitled man in the aisle seat. I told them that the middle seat was mine. The conversation went something like this. My wife and I are traveling together, let her sit with me. You can sit at her seat, the entitled man tells me. Her seat was in aisle 1, a couple of rows back on the right side of the plane. Sitting there would mean that my left leg would be in the aisle, and very prone to getting disturbed by the in-flight service and any moving passengers. I would go there, but I have an injured leg, and I need the extra leg space. I told you that you can sit there. I want to sit with my wife. You should respect elders. You can ask someone from there to exchange a seat, and you can go back to sit with her. I try to reason with him. By now he was speaking loudly so that half the plane could hear. How dare you talk to me like that? He then went on a whole rant. By this point I was thoroughly angry, and my leg was really hurting. A nice air hostess came up and took stock of the situation. She made the wife move to her seat. That was another argument. The air hostess finally threatened to throw them off the plane or something, which worked. The girl beside them had witnessed the whole debacle up close, and I guess she felt bad for me because she offered her window seat. I gratefully accepted. We started chatting, and both of us turned out to be from the same college, but from different campuses. My college had 3 different campuses across the city. We conversed a bit in Tamil. Mine was still very bad, and I think the entitled man assumed I couldn't speak or understand Marathi. I had argued with him in Hindi. He started an extra loud conversation with a guy on the opposite side in Marathi, complaining about how kids are spoiled these days, have no respect, and he just kept complaining about me. I was listening to him, and the girl could see me getting angry. She asked me what he was saying, and I chose to answer loudly in Hindi to everyone who cared to listen. I literally tore into him and pretty much called him a self-absorbed man who couldn't plan ahead and get better seats for himself. Half the plane could hear what I was saying, and there was pin-drop silence. During his complaint, he'd asked rhetorically what I would do if it was my father. I told him that my father was a decent man who would go out of his way to help a person in need and not make it difficult. Yada yada. I must have ranted for at least 3-4 minutes non-stop. The man was red in the face and stayed silent for the rest of the flight. He managed to exchange his seat with a girl sitting across from his wife and stayed there afterwards. The girl and I ended up becoming good friends though, messaging each other once in a while, etc.